Welcome everyone back to episode 134 of The Art of Business English. Hello Loic, how are you, buddy?
You know what? I'm well, and I'm trying to protect myself here from the noise. Hopefully it won't come through, but I think my neighbors are renovating. They're building a house inside an apartment, it sounds like.
They're building a house inside an apartment.
Inside
Sounds
an apartment.
Awesome. Yeah. That's the joy of podcasting, isn't it? You have to just, unless you've got a professionally soundproofed studio, you have to just roll with the punches. There's an expression for you, roll with the punches.
Roll with the punches.
Yeah, roll with the punches. I like that one. So welcome back, everybody. We are going to be concluding our 3-part mini-series on, improving listening and being a better listener. We looked at harpooning versus boomeranging, which is something we all do, where you bring the conversation back to yourself. So if you haven't listened to episode 132, check it out. It's very interesting. Well, I think it's interesting, but then again, I guess I'm my biggest fan. Then last week we did episode 133, which was empathetic listening, which, I think we discussed some pretty interesting points there as well. That was a long episode. It went for nearly an hour. But we went deep into that. It was good. And today, Loic is going to take over from me in the driving seat and is going to lead this discussion on working on developing your listening skills. So this is more focused on actually language acquisition, becoming a better English speaker, or in this case, an English listener. So Loic, would you like to introduce today's topic? Or
So Andrew, what I figured is, being an English learning channel and a business channel, but also an English learning channel, I figured we look at some of the basics, go back to the basics for a moment, and also talk about where does listening fit in with the 4 skills.
The 4 skills? What are the 4 skills for those less...
Exactly, I knew that was coming.
Yeah.
So basically I put it to you like this, Andrew. You certainly know, but let's just clarify for everyone. Basically, we operate in a language environment in 4 different ways. You've got input, which is coming in through reading and listening. And then you've got output, which is essentially speaking and writing. So that gives you your 4 skills of language acquisition, acquiring, but also practicing. And where listening fits in, basically, is that listening is an input skill. And this helps you receive the language. And that's the premise of where I'm going through today, Basically, you're receiving the language through listening.
Perfect. Okay.
Okay, so those are your 4 skills.
Yeah.
And basically, look at it this way. And these are different methodologies. Different people have different ways, different experiences as well. My experience has been listening through immersion. And I know immersion is often thrown around as a concept, and some people buy into it, others don't.
Yeah.
There seem to be, 2 common schools.
Yeah, so immersion is thrown around as a very fashionable term by lots of the language schools of the world. And can't we have full immersion where you come to my school 2 hours a week? Well, that's not really full immersion. And full immersion is more like what my kids have, living in like a multilingual house where they're exposed to a language every day. They watch television in English. Their father speaks to them in English. Their mother doesn't. She speaks to them in Catalan. But the full immersion is when you're exposed, like you're living or you're in an environment where you're exposed on a daily basis to that language. Just to clarify. So Loic, back to you, buddy.
Absolutely, and that's been my experience. When I came to South Africa, I spoke 1 word of English, and that was hello. And I was either 11 or 12 years old, and that's it. That's immersion. If you want to get anything done, if you want something, if you want friends, if you want to eat, it's all going to be in English. So you pick up pretty quickly, And it's also testing all your 4 skills. That's the point,
Yeah, I was the same. When I arrived in Spain, like 13, 14 years ago, my only Spanish was hola and cerveza, basically. So,
hello, give me a beer.
Hola, cerveza, or una cerveza. So you're exposed to, and you notice. Obviously, you're not 11 or 12. You're a fully grown adult, and you've got a South African accent. But
Yeah.
That's what's interesting about listening. You've picked up this accent because you've been immersed in that type of English-speaking environment where people use that accent. And when I moved, even from Australia, when I moved from Australia to England and I lived in London, I started speaking like a Londoner. Like your accent changes because you start adopting the tone and the intonation from the people who are around you. So it's really a good idea to mirror or mimic the tone and intonation of native speakers or those around you to improve your English. However, lots of my students are like, no, I sound like an idiot. And it's like, well, no, you don't. You're actually like sounding native or more natural. Sorry, anyway, back to you, Loic.
No, I think it's a useful digress there, Andrew. I think it's a useful digress because quite often we try and avoid teaching individual words to our students. And it's not for everybody, it's not for every discipline. But basically, if you can listen to the flow of the language and pick it up in chunks of 5, 10 words, phrases at a time, that also allows you to get that mirroring. It allows you to adopt the language in its correct form
So
in the environment where you find yourself.
Yeah. How do you suggest people go about learning chunks? Chunk is un trozo, no? A piece. How do people go about learning chunks or 5 or 10 word phrases, or even 3 or 4 word phrases? How do people go about that?
Even 3 or 4, yeah.
Yeah.
So you basically listen to the people speaking and you don't focus on the words, the individual words themselves, for a couple of reasons. First of all, you run the risk of not understanding what's being said. You'll understand that one word, but that microsecond of processing that one word means that you've now lost the rest of the thread of the conversation. So try to listen to the way the whole thing sounds. So for example, you take a phrase like, without diving into details. That's it, without diving into details. And you listen to that and you'll pick up immediately your stress syllables are going to be in there, your words logically are going to be in there, your context, without diving into details. Again, if you take the word diving, it's got absolutely nothing to do with conversation individually. But taken in context, it's one of those kind of, would you call it an idiom?
Yeah,
Idiomatic?
It's an expression that we use. So, and alone, the word diving wouldn't make sense. Like, but diving into the pool is normally like, but diving into detail, once you join it with into a sentence or make this expression, then you can sort of understand what it means, because you're like, okay, diving means to go down, to go deep, no?
Into something.
Yeah, deep into something, and detail is, that's quite clear, no? The word detail, most people understand that word. So you
pick it up in chunks, basically there you've got 4 words and you pick it up that way rather than focusing on individual words.
Exactly.
But my thinking, continue.
Well, I just wanted to say that what's interesting about this sentence or this phrase is that, or this expression, is that it's got like without, which is a preposition, and then into with another preposition. So we have lots of prepositions in the middle, and a lot of the time people are trying to listen for every single word, whereas if you understand the main nouns or verbs of a sentence, you can generally understand the context. I think people get hung up on trying to understand everything, whereas maybe into is said quickly using the neutra, the schwa, the neutral sound, and it's not really that important in terms of the context or understanding the meaning. Like, if you understand without diving detail, you pretty much have got the meaning of that expression. But we do that. Lots of prepositions in English are quite neutral, like to, instead of to, it's to, on. So lots of those prepositions are linked into other words and not easily understood. So back to you, buddy. Yeah, it's another side note.
Yeah, quite right.
Another digression. Another digression.
Yeah. So my thinking, based on the experience, is like this. I'm in a foreign country. I'd have to quickly assimilate the language to operate effectively. And this usually means surrounding yourself with the language without much support from your native language. That's basically immersion. So it means, to me, that I don't have the luxury of focusing on any one of the skills in isolation. And so from my point of view, the approach that I take on this is that without overwhelming the student, what we found is the more you can surround them with English in all the different forms, the more effective their learning will be.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
you will find conclusive evidence on either side of that argument, I'm
So
sure.
what are the two arguments then, just to clarify?
So the one quite often is used where you would focus on just listening. So it's a listening, sometimes even a listening class. So you'll basically be doing predominantly listening for like 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine in terms of training one skill.
Mm-hmm.
And there is, if you think about it, there never really is one skill, because
No.
even if you're practicing speaking and you have a speaking exercise, you're receiving feedback from somebody. Either it's your colleagues, your mates, your schoolmates, your teacher. So you're automatically actually doing listening as well.
Mm.
So it's a fallacy to think that you're just doing a speaking class or a speaking lesson. You might as well adopt the language in its entirety, in all four skills, and go with it and realize that this is very essential. So that when you're doing the listening, you understand that this is not listening in order to speak, but this is just adopting the language by listening and by speaking.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so yeah, that would be the immersion kind of view.
Yeah, I agree. There are exceptions, of course, to everything. For example, if you are listening to this podcast now and you're in the car driving,
You're not talking.
yeah, you're not talking, you're just listening, which is nice, and you're getting exposure to native people speaking English and different accents and different extensive vocabulary, which is important, and it's also interesting. It's good to listen to podcasts that you're interested in, because then it's not like you're doing this because it's work. And the other exception, I guess, would be, a lot of students, particularly ones that I train, the younger ones, they're actually preparing for exams. So they actually have to spend time. It's quite bored. This is not much fun. Like, you're actually studying to pass an exam, and a part of that exam is that they have a listening section. For example, if we look at the Cambridge exams, the IELTS or the first, the advanced, the proficiency, every single exam has a listening component to it, where you are passively listening and trying to find out an answer to answer a question. So, that would be more mechanized or more structured listening. Whereas I agree with you in terms of a holistic approach to learning and listening is much more entertaining. It's much more natural too. So what are the tips then for students? Are there things they can do to improve their listening, or are they at the mercy of their English teacher?
In fact, there is something that I've been working on more and more, and these are not, this is not some kind of new science, but I think the idea of learner autonomy is a very important one when it comes to shifting the focus of the engagement that we're having from teaching to learning. And it's a very subtle difference, because you're expected to learn as I teach. But if the focus is on the learning, then you take on a lot more responsibility for your development. And so when you ask me about, to what degree should the teacher be involved, for example, the teacher is there. The teacher is pointing you in the right direction. The teacher is moderating and facilitating, but doing a lot less of the traditional teaching as such. So it's not done for you, it's done with you, and eventually pushed onto you, so you do it yourself. Because that is it's the most painful form of adopting a language, but it's the most effective. It's the one that'll stick with you.
It's true.
Whereas if it's presented, you easily forget that as well. Just like lists of words, you immediately forget.
Yeah, you can study and memorize them, but you will forget them eventually unless you start, putting them into practice. What's also interesting is that I always tell my students this as well. It gets easier as you improve, which is quite ironic. When you are very low level, basic, or pre-intermediate level, it seems there are many barriers to improving. But at the same time, when you are at these levels, you notice your progression quite significantly. The steps are quite profound. You're like, wow, a year ago I could barely speak English, and now I can speak okay. But you are quite dependent on a structured system or someone, a teacher pushing every week to get your work done. Whereas once you cross the threshold and get to an upper intermediate, not even an advanced level, like an upper intermediate level, you can become much more autonomous as a learner, because you are then able to research or read or look or find things much more independently, because you will understand a lot more. And then it becomes like a flywheel, which is quite popular now in business, talking about flywheels. It's like you gain this momentum, and it just keeps going faster and faster. And that's what will happen with your level as it improves. You will be able to work on things independently yourself, watch movies, read more in complicated texts, and have discussions with people on a wider range of topics. So I think that's important to keep in mind. It can seem a bit difficult and hard, like you mentioned before, like it's the hard way to go. But once you get that flywheel moving, you really can progress well. And the only challenge then is that when you get at this high level, the changes in your level are very subtle. So maybe you have the sensation when you get quite advanced or upper that you are not progressing much, but you really are. Because it's not as profound. The jumps between levels are not as profound.
Yeah. As a percentage of what you already know, the percentage feels like it's very small, but in its absolute, the number of new words perhaps, the amount of new knowledge that you're picking up is substantial. But as a percentage of what you already know, sure, it won't feel like it. Yeah.
Exactly. So what else, buddy? What else have we got in tips?
So, it's a podcast proposing effective ways for learners to improve their listening skills today. So I have 3.
You got 3? Only 3?
I have 3.
3's a good. I like 3. 3's a good number. Yeah, because you should. That's another tip, and I need to learn this because I'm terrible. Less is more. Less is more.
Yeah.
Just do 3 things. Do them well. Don't do 10 things and do them poorly.
Exactly.
Or half-heartedly or half-assed. Okay, so what's your first one?
Okay, so and this we can actually discuss, and see, do you agree, do you disagree? Is there a better way of doing it?
Good.
So let's start with an obvious one, relatively obvious, and that is movies and TV shows. Okay, so that's my one-liner, movies and TV shows. It's quite a traditional and effective methods. And I must say, I've advocated watching video materials with subtitles in the past. And this is often something that is debatable. Because
but subtitles in English or subtitles in the person's native language is a good question.
In English. So you're listening in English, and now you're reading, which the counter to that is that you're starting to read a lot more than you're listening because it's just easier. So that is a counter, but you could put them in sequence. So for example, it allows you to adopt the language through reading and listening. So now you're actually taking in 2 skills effectively, because subconsciously, as you're reading, you're picking up the tones, you're picking up the pronunciation, the stress syllable, all of that is coming across, so there are benefits to it. But here's the thing, we're automatically lazy as a species, so we'll find the shortest route to get to a result. So this probably means watching the movie, so you'll be watching the movie, but you'll be reading the subtitles. That's normally the counter to that argument. It's just common sense. It's common sense. The problem is that, I suppose, you would watch the movie, you would understand it, but you wouldn't hear it if you've got subtitles on. So here's the advice, and maybe that's why movies, if they're nice movies, you'll watch them twice. If they're nice series, you may watch them twice. So the advice is watch it twice. Boring, but effective. And because this time you'll have received the context of the video material already, and you may have read the vocabulary. And now, things that you were not previously familiar with, you are, so you can focus on the listening. So again, it's a little bit of work, but you are trying to learn a language, not just watch a movie. Watching the movie makes it fun.
I would agree. I think you should start out. It's a challenge because it depends on your level. From my experience, even now, after having lived for 14 years in Spain or in Catalonia, it's still difficult to understand native people speaking either Spanish or Catalan on the television. It's quite so it can be quite challenging, especially if your level is low. I mean, starting out watching a series and movies with a fairly average level of English is going to be pretty challenging, and a lot of people will just get, this is too hard, and become demotivated. But going back to your advice, I mean, I think there are lots of benefits in, if you do have a series that you've watched, for example, I don't know, you loved Friends 15 years ago. I love Friends. And you've watched it millions of times in your native language. Then, you could start out by going, because I mean, some people are just like fanatical with series. They know every single episode. They know more or less the whole storyline behind every single episode or every single season. So you could go back and watch a series that you used to watch in your native language and you enjoyed it a lot, and then watch it, because it's going to be easy to watch it in English, because you'll know what's going on, and it won't be like you're just get completely lost. So that's a good one. But something that's even easier, and it's not related to listening, is just to start reading. Something simple things. Yeah. So I think to start out, it's good to just read simple stuff, like simple blogs, anything that you're interested in. That will help you as well. And if you read out loud as well, that can help. Like, so you hear yourself talking. It's a bit weird, but if you do read out loud, meaning in voz alta, not like you're reading like to yourself, but you're saying the words out, that can also help as well. What about tips for? Is there anything you would say for lower level people? With listening,
I think focusing on the reading definitely helps, because the reading is the easier one to work with. So if you could use, definitely the reading. I would certainly advocate at that point my next point, which is reading and listening. Reading and listening. So it's similar to the technique above. Yeah, maybe an audiobook. I think audio is good. It can have mixed results. It can be frustrating for the student who is trying to catch up with the speech, because they cannot read fast enough, perhaps. There are, but with modern technology, you can slow down the speaker as well. So there are ways around it. But in South Africa, we say horses for courses. Have you ever heard that? Horses for courses.
I may have heard it, but I'm not. The context is, I mean, horses for courses. You're a native speaker. I'm a native speaker, but we don't always know all the expressions.
Yeah, it basically means, apply the technique that works in the particular circumstances. And so locally here, that's what they say. But it's similar to the technique that we've just spoken above, but introducing kind of a third element, if you will, a focus on a third element, which is now the reading. So it gives us the opportunity to identify the vocabulary, the phrases, the sentence structure. And this is important, because when you're listening, when you're speaking, which is ultimately what most people seem to want to do. Of my clients, generally speaking, is the number one thing. Completely not realizing that if you were to read and listen, particularly reading, you would pick up that vocabulary, you would pick up the phrases. The listening would give you the intonation and the pronunciation. So when you put that package all together, it gives you some good English to work with.
And when you read, your brain subconsciously creates like these neurological pathways that
that's right.
That things, and you look at, and even simple things like word order, like if you can get to the point where it's something you don't need to learn the rules, you just it sounds natural to put words in the correct order. That's a great place to be, as opposed to studying like the rule, adjective before nouns, or adjective plus enough plus noun. I mean, there are some rules for word order, but if you can just do it naturally, it sounds much better, and you'll get that from reading as well. Just on another tip, for example, there are lots of cool little websites that offer free resources, and I'm in no way. I have no relationship with these people. This is not me plugging their websites. But for example, there's one called, and this guy's great. He just pumps out free stuff. It's called Breaking News English, and I think every couple of days he's putting out like an episode.
That's right.
And it's just based on like current events, and it's got the transcript, and then it's got like 3 speeds of recording. So you just download the speed that you can do it like for a beginner speed, like intermediate speed or just like natural speed. And that way you can just listen to something. It'll take you like literally 5 or 10 minutes every couple of days. And you listen to him, I think his name's Sean, is it? You listen to him, reading the transcript, and then you can follow along. And then there are some exercises if you want. But there are lots of little things you can do to improve like in tandem, your listening, reading and vocabulary skills. What else, buddy? What else would you like to
Well, so we'll let them in on that little secret, which is breaking news English from a teaching perspective. It's just fantastic.
Yeah.
Because he's done most of the legwork for you. And I mean, you can choose between American English and English, British English.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of things that you can work with on that website and train yourself. And I think a lot of the times the reason that the teachers go to that website is because we're able to, since it's part of our task to do so, we're able to go through the website, look at that lesson, break it down and reuse it, repurpose it, and use that with our students. If you ask the students to do that by themselves, it would take a lot of discipline on their part to methodically go through that. However, if you do want to get some good listening practice, you'll be able to read and listen at the same time. And if you did want to test yourself on simple things like prepositions, word order, all of that, as you say, we're not going to plug the site, but Breaking News English is good.
Yeah, it's a good site. Yeah, and
Very
there's another
good.
one which is called the BBC doesn't do it anymore. But it's still on their website. I think it's called 6 Minute English, and
Okay.
it's like literally like an English lesson that lasts for like 6 minutes. So there's lots of little things that you can do.
There are.
I mean, my advice is to always keep it simple, and it's better to be consistent than do something one day a week. So if you can do something for 10 minutes a day, then it's much easier to develop the habit. And there's a good book about that. I think it's called The Coaching Habit.
Coaching habit. Yeah, that's quite famous.
Yeah, and I think he talks about, I can't remember if it was that one or not. Anyway, I've read so many books, but basically it's really easy to develop a habit if you break it into, break it down to 1 minute. Like, is it something you can do in a minute? Yeah. So like literally,
that's interesting.
Because everyone can say, well, it's just 1 minute. And then it's never 1 minute, it's 5. But once you do it, it's 5 minutes. So you say, okay, all I have to do is this. And every day you say, it's just 1 minute, I can do it. Who hasn't got a minute? And then you can build on the time, and over time you develop the habit. Because people say, oh, you in 28 days or 30 days it becomes a habit. Well, not really. That's not really true. You need to be quite consistent over a long period of time to develop a habit. Yeah. And to make it simple, you break it down into something that will take literally like 1 minute or 2 minutes or 5 minutes max. And then it's easy to start it because you know that it will only take me 5 minutes. And everyone has 5 minutes in their day.
Generally.
I hope so.
No, look, I mean it because, I use a technique like that with one of my students as part of this integrated skills and something else that in the field we call blended learning. And from a teaching perspective and from a student perspective, it's hugely effective. Send me a WhatsApp. Read me that 5-liner, that phrase, read me something. Maybe I'll give you an exercise and I'll say, why don't you give me your reasoning why you would select these 3 things? But don't just write them, because now you're getting writing practice, you're getting processing in your head of how to write it. But I'm going to ask you to send me a WhatsApp.
An audio?
So now you're getting absolutely.
Oh,
and it's going to take you minutes, and it's going to take me minutes, and then you'll be listening to my feedback. So now you've got yourself a little lesson in one day, which is going to interrupt your native environment. So if you're in Spain, it's going to interrupt that Spanish environment for just long enough that you can remember that you're still learning English, as opposed to doing nothing until the next class, in which case you have a lot of catching up to do at that next class. So a bit of homework in between on a daily basis, big difference.
That's a good tip. Just a little 5-minute task to do.
Absolutely.
Answer this question or read me something from the newspaper today. Find something interesting from English speaking or from the BBC website. Except, mind you, the BBC these days, it should be called the ABC, the American Broadcasting Corporation, because all the news is just American. I don't know what's happened to the BBC, but it's just like
Really?
America. Yeah, everything is America. Okay.
Yeah.
The world is America, apparently, according to the BBC now. So you could try something else. You could check out other English-speaking or English language news websites and ask, the student to read you an audio quote over WhatsApp from one of their favourite paragraphs from an article. So there's lots of little things that we can do.
Yeah.
Other tips? What other tips have you got for learners?
You've just gone through a summer in Europe, and summers in Europe are particularly interesting because people take their holidays quite seriously in Europe, I found. Particularly, Spain, Portugal, Italy, Greece. And so I think recently to one of my students who is taking the, I think it's B2 level, the Cambridge First Trainer is the book he's working with.
Yeah, first certificate.
First Trainer. And so he's on holiday on some remote island, and every day he's sending me some sort of a reading exercise from the book, from the textbook, as well as, so there's two pieces of audio that I'm receiving from him. The one is the structured one, perhaps a reading exercise from the textbook. And the next one is a short description of what the day was all about. What happened? What did he see? Who did he engage with? Just whatever happened, make a note of it and send it through to me. You know what? You're on holiday, and I've seen it with some of my Italian students where they come back to me after 2 months. Man, we got a lot of catching up to do because, he's been surrounded by Italian on holiday for 2 months. Yeah. So you're walking back very quickly. But if you can break that pattern, and on a daily basis, what we actually found is, although he was on holiday, he was in Italy, his language level was better at the end of the holiday than when he went in. Just from daily WhatsApps being sent around.
That's great. Something simple.
And it's on a theme that you're enjoying, so it's a natural topic. You're not having to study something. You're just sharing with me what's going on in your world.
Excellent.
In my language.
I think it's important too, always, go for topics that you're interested in. If you're young as well, I've got some students who are they're like in their early, or they're maybe early 20s or late teens, let's say 19, 20, 21. And some of them, they love gaming, they're gamers. And their English is actually quite good because they're interacting for many, many hours with people online in English. A lot of the gamers use English as the common language, and some of them speak really quite well because they're every day and obviously gaming is quite addictive, so they're spending long hours playing games, but they're also spending long hours interacting with people from different countries using English. So even gaming can be a good way to practice your English. If you're gaming now, then maybe, and you're just speaking to people who are from your country, maybe you should start getting into some of those gaming forums and meet people who are English speaking and try and start out slowly and get in talking to them, and you'll pick up things quite quickly. That's another option.
That's a good point, Dad.
Yeah. People love gaming, and you're spending a lot of time doing it, and you're enjoying it. So make the most of it and talk to people in English as well.
And it's natural, isn't it? You just pick up the language just that.
Yeah, I've got a student. He's quite a genius. I think he's got a very high IQ, but literally he hasn't gone to any formal. He's never had any formal language training. He's never gone to an academy or anything, and he speaks native English, but amazing. He speaks better English. Yeah, he speaks English. He speaks better English than some of my native friends. He's very articulate, and he's just picked up all of his expressions and so many idioms just by spending hours and hours online gaming with people. And he always talks to the Americans because he stays up late, and when the Americans are awake, he's still awake talking to them. So very, very useful if you can get, and if that's something that you're doing. And then if you're a young guy in your early teens and you listen to this podcast, now you can tell your parents, no, I'm actually studying English instead of spending hours gaming.
Loic and Andrew said I should play games.
Yeah, exactly. Loic and Andrew said that gaming is very important for my English.
Good.
Yeah. Okay, what about anything else that you'd recommend before we wrap things up?
So a third technique, which is pretty much something that everyone should be using anyway, and it kind of goes right back to what we've been talking about over the last few weeks, Empathetic listening. Basically, when you're listening to somebody, being in that moment, being present, listening, because now you're asking yourself to take an interest in what the other person is saying. And that alone, that intention, so listening with intention, compels you to listen carefully to what they're saying and what they mean by what they're saying. So you want opportunities to process the language as effectively as you can, and that is actually, at the end of the day, one of them. So for example, a business example. I had to present the report, but I wasn't ready, and I spent the whole morning preparing. So the next person says, and I don't know if we covered this kind of example, but you throw it back to them and you say, so you mean for this report, you spent the morning preparing instead of working? You see how you're rephrasing it and you're passing it back to them. But in your own head, by rephrasing and passing it back to the person that spoke, to whom you listened, you've listened to what they said, intentionally processed it in your own mind, and gave it back to them to confirm that understanding. So besides the fact that it becomes a speaking exercise as much as a listening exercise, the idea is that you're getting confirmation as well that you heard correctly, which is nice.
And
so you don't have to go to school for that.
No, you don't, and it leads to becoming a more confident speaker, because you're not just listening terrified. You're actually, actively participating in the conversation, and you're asking for clarification. You're asking for this correction in case that there's been a misunderstanding. And yeah, you're right. You're paraphrasing, or you're reformulating in your mind what you think you heard, and this is intentional listening, so which is really important as well. Okay, have I got any tips before we go? Well, you should listen to the Art of Business English podcast every week, because that's a great way. That's a great way to improve your listening. You should never avoid opportunities to engage with people in English. This is a very common problem.
Yeah.
Lots of people are terrified, so they don't. When someone calls them, they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, can you send me an email?" Because they're terrified. Whereas you should always make the effort and try to engage someone in conversation on the phone or in person or whatever, even if it's difficult. I mean, if it's a disaster, it doesn't matter. The next day you will have forgotten that conversation. So, but every single opportunity that you get to converse or to listen is an opportunity to improve. So I always encourage my students to just get out there and happily suffer. Yeah, happily suffer.
Growth is painful.
Growth it is. I mean, I remember when I first arrived here, it was tiring, so tiring. I used to like I love going for dinner and socializing, but in the beginning it was like, oh my God, I was exhausted. I really at some point I had to switch off, because you're listening to conversations in a restaurant. It's loud, there's background noise, and people are talking really amongst themselves or at the table amongst their friends, and you're trying to follow the conversation. So yeah, we understand it is difficult going through
not easy
this transformation. But
you get both of us knew nothing of a certain language. In your case, Catalan, Spanish, and in my case, English. That's a long time ago. I mean, obviously, I've fully integrated, but it's the truth. We remember those lessons, and it was not easy. It was not easy.
No, it was not. It was very painful and very tiring, and very embarrassing. And even now, even now, sometimes I can't express myself, or I don't understand things properly. So it's a long road. It's not that you're going to become perfectly overnight. So don't worry. I mean, this is one of the challenges when you're speaking your native language. You're free, but when you're trying to express yourself in a foreign language, there will be certain aspects of your character or your personality that will be difficult to fully express, and that's just something that you'll have to accept. But it's also good if you understand languages, or another language, you understand other perspectives on the world. It teaches you to be more patient. It teaches you to be a better communicator. It teaches you to speak slower, and it teaches you to be much more intentional with your words and think more about what you actually want to say or what you are saying. And that's one of the tips as well. Like if you're going into a conversation, or if you know that you've got a meeting, or if you know you've got a call coming up, you need to think about it more and think about how you're going to structure that conversation if you're not speaking your native language. Well, my friend, what do you reckon? Anything before we go?
No, look, maybe just empathy is not sympathy. I know we've touched on this before and people confuse the two. You know, sympathy is feeling for someone. Probably that's the best way to say it. You feel for someone. And empathy is to feel as someone. And so use that, you know, put yourself in the other person's shoes, see it from their perspective, and suddenly you're surrounding yourself with a whole other world. And then you pick up the language. Good.
Okay, buddy. Well, those are my tips. Check out, and Loic's tips. Check out Sean's site, the Breaking News English, which is a good one. You can also check out some stuff over at the BBC called 6 Minute English. One more tip you can do is one of some of the tips which Loic's mentioned with if you do have an English teacher, or if you are interested in training with us, you can contact the Art of Business English and contract our services, and we're more than happy to work with people one-on-one or in small groups. You can get WhatsApp conversations going, audios. There's a myriad of options if you have a good teacher. And a little bit every day is better than just, a big chunk, an hour on Friday, maybe would be better. I would recommend 10 minutes a day or 15 minutes a day as opposed to like 1 hour on a Friday. Just having this like consistency over time will help develop your skill. And I think going back to what Loic said, being responsible for your learning and being a bit more of an independent learner goes a long way. Anything before we wrap up you want to say?
I'm good. No, I think we've covered all the bases.
Okay then, guys. Thank you very much. I'll see you next week on the Art of Business English, and that concludes our mini-series on listening skills. But I hope you've enjoyed it. Drop us some comments and look forward to seeing you all next week. Take care.
Right.
Bye for now.
Take care.
Bye.